Part 281. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2808. The shopkeeper Zhengde was not very relieved, but at this moment he had no good solution, so he could only send Zhou Man to the car. Gods and Buddhas all over the sky bless, Zhou Man is fine, now their biggest backer is her, and his second brother can only walk around the capital, but in terms of people he knows, Zhou Man is the most powerful. When Man Bao returned to Prince Gong's mansion, the county magistrate Luo came out of the prison, but his face was not very good. The confidant who followed behind him said, "Sir, I see that Zhenggu's face is not good, he is obviously frightened, and maybe he will be recruited 2 more times." Luo County Magistrate did not hold out hope. "We dragged Mr. N out in front of him, he didn't let go for a while, and after he recovered, he must know what we should do to Mr. N, and he will not let him go." Recruited. He angrily returned to the county office, paused for a while when he was halfway there, and stopped. No, why did Zhou Man come to Luoyang? How did she know the news? It's not that she came to see Prince Gong by order. When she arrives in Luoyang, she will definitely find her own disciple. If she can't find it, she will know. But why is Zhenggu's father here? The county magistrate had a bad premonition in his heart, and he felt a little dizzy. Hurry up and find out when Zhou Man and the others entered the city, and they did it after entering the city. What? Go check it out. Without waiting for the confidant to run out, Luo County Magistrate's master came with someone. "Sir, you have a letter from the capital." Master is the confidant of Luo County Magistrate's confidant. He can open and read ordinary letters without the permission of Luo County Magistrate, unless it is a secret letter. So the magistrate Luo picked up his robe and quickly went back to open the letter. After he finished reading, he sat down on the chair, rubbed his forehead with a headache, and said, "There is no need to check, there are angels in the capital who are coming to check on this." The master was shocked and asked, "Isn't it not reported? How did the capital know about it? You weren't careful when you raided your home." Someone who told Zhenggu ran out, and someone went to the capital to report this. The people below immediately defended, "Sir, Zhenggu lives in the backyard of the medical office. There were many people who came to pick up medicine in those days, and he hired some part-time workers. When we raided our house, there were people running out everywhere. It was very difficult. Determine which one is his. This is not the time to shirk responsibility, the most urgent thing is to think about what to do." The master said, "Sir, since the capital already knows," the angel asked why he didn't report it. "How would you answer? Heavy snow blocked the road, people can't get out." "It's not right," the master said, "Zhenggu's people can go to the capital, why can't your adults?" The magistrate Luo thought for a moment and said, "A tolerance has been dispatched, but the road is blocked by heavy snow. Someone may have an accident on the road, and we have been waiting for a reply." The master nodded and instructed the catcher below, "Pick 2 people and let them hide elsewhere, and then come out after the angel walks out. The catcher should go down." The magistrate Luo did not dare to relax, so he lowered his voice and said, "There is one more thing, I took Zhenggu into custody without the approval of the censor desk. My lord, the victim's family has been making trouble, which has aroused the indignation of the people in the city. After the official document was sent out, there has been no reply. You have no choice but to take Mr. Zheng into custody. This move is not only to quell the public's anger, but also to protect Xiao Zheng. Your family," the master said, "the local officials have the right to be appropriate, so it's not really a big deal." County Magistrate Luo let out a sigh of relief. The master said, "The adults from the Censor Terrace and Dali Temple are difficult to deal with, but the one who is even more difficult to deal with is Prince Gong." He said, "Although Prince Gong doesn't care about anything, Luoyang County is no longer the fief of Prince Gong, but His Majesty has always favored Prince Gong. If Prince Gong intervenes, the matter might be worse. King Gong's fief Luoz who once included a large and very rich place in Luoyang. Unfortunately, he made troubles one after another. With the efforts of the ministers, the emperor could only cut off his fief twice. Luoyang County was removed from his fief in this way. Originally, the feudal lord could not intervene in the appointment and removal of the fief and government affairs. Now he can't speak. However, it is not possible on the surface, but his influence is still very large in the dark. The magistrate Luo didn't want to offend the prince, otherwise his tenure in the next few years would be too difficult, so he thought about it seriously. After thinking about it, he said, "Isn't Zhou Man the prince's man?" The master said helplessly, "Sir, if the prince's leg hadn't been injured, Prince Gong would have dared to fight with the prince, but his leg was injured, and he was no longer in that position, so naturally he had to repair his relationship with the prince. For this, he will not be embarrassed. Who doesn't know that Zhou Man is the prince's person?" At this time, King Gong was in trouble. He leaned on the pillow, his big body squeezed into a specially oversized chair, his calf was lifted up and placed on a small table, and a maid was kneeling on the left and right, pressing his legs. He also raised his chin to look at Zhou Man. He was obviously shorter when he was sitting than Zhou Man when he was standing, but he felt condescending. He said, "What I said, why did you come to see this king? It turns out that the drunkard's intention is not drinking. If you didn't run this trip, I still don't know that your apprentice was arrested. Why? Your imperial physician office has only opened within 2 years and it will collapse." Man Bao glanced at him and said, "His Royal Highness Prince Gong, do you know who built the imperial physician's office?" Prince Gong sneered, "Of course I know, isn't it the crown prince?" He said, "Isn't your imperial physician office, as well as the Ministry of Rights and the Ministry of Household, all the heirs of the crown prince?" "I can't say the same, it's just that the prince used to manage the Ministry of Rights, but now he is in charge of the Ministry of Households. When the Imperial Physician Department was established, the prince was in charge, so these 3 departments were naturally close to the prince. Therefore," Man Bao said, "there are only 2 true heirs of the crown prince, one is the Zhenshifu and the other is the Kongwengan. We are not the Imperial Medical Department. We are a department established by the Imperial Court, which is the same as the 6 departments and 9 temples." Prince Gong was so angry that he retracted his foot, stepped on the ground and sprayed her, "Aren't you from the Chongguan Pavilion, aren't you a confidant of the prince? How dare you say that the imperial physician's office is not the prince's?" Man Bao disgustedly took out the handkerchief and wiped his face. After thinking about it, the first sentence of this sentence was barely half right, but the second sentence was completely wrong. She said, "I am still His Majesty's confidant, and the confidant of the Empress, is the imperial physician's office from the Great Jin dynasty, or from the harem." Prince Gong sat back angrily. Only then did Zhou Man continue the topic. "The imperial physician's office was built by the Empress," she said with a serious face. "In the 14th year of Dajhen, we went up and suggested to His Majesty to rebuild the imperial physician's office. At that time, only the Empress said it was okay." Prince Gong was taken aback for a moment. The crown prince did not have a son in the 14th year of Dajhen, and the concubine didn't conceive until the 15th year of Dajhen, and it was in that year that someone proposed to rebuild the imperial physician's office, and then the crown prince fully supported, and later. King Gong looked at Zhou Man and asked, "What are you talking about with this king? See you tomorrow." Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2809. His Royal Highness is filial. You should cultivate Judah. How can you ridicule me and the imperial physician's office? If the imperial physician's office falls, the empress will be the most saddened. Is this your filial piety? King Gong opened his mouth and stared at Zhou Man for a long time, speechless. The two of them stared at each other with such big eyes, and Man Bao realized that Prince Gong's eyes were smaller, and it seemed that he was going to lose weight. King Gong didn't say anything under Zhou Man's gaze, just got up and left. After a while, a maid bowed her head and said respectfully, "Master Zhou, your highness feels a little sore in her legs." Man Bao said, "I have to prepare some more things for his highness to take a bath and wait." Man Bao went to prepare something for Mok Sebastian. A lot of things have to be prepared now, so it takes a bit of time, and she didn't even eat dinner. But at this moment, Prince Gong had already taken a bath and leaned on the soft couch. There was a brazier in the house, and he was covered with fox fur. It was warm and not very cold. Princess Gong came in with a cup of health tea. Seeing that his underwear was half open, she stepped forward to take care of him. Although it is warm in the house, it is winter after all, so be careful to catch a cold from the wind. Seeing that Prince Gong didn't speak, Princess Gong asked softly, "What is the prince thinking?" King Gong took a sip of the cup of health tea, stared at the teacup and thought, "This king is thinking, should this king intervene in the Luozu medical department, or not?" Princess Gong was stunned when she heard the words, "Didn't the Lord still say that the vassal king is not good at meddling in local affairs at noon today?" King Gong suffers from leg problems. This year, there is a lot of snow and cold, so it is especially uncomfortable. In addition to the emperor's expedition, the crown prince oversees the country. In order to avoid suspicion and avoid greater conflicts, since the emperor's expedition, the outing activities of Prince Gong's mansion have basically stopped. If it wasn't for the people at noon who reported that Zhou Man had gone to the county government office, he wouldn't have known about such news from the Luozu medical department. At that time, he knew that Zhou Man was using his power to threaten the magistrate Luo. Although he was not very happy, he did not demolish the position. But in the same way, he did not allow the people in the palace to participate more, and directly told the princess that if Zhou Man asked her to help but refuse. But now, King Gong pondered, the imperial physician's office was built by the Queen Mother, and now the crown prince is in charge. He couldn't help but snorted, but said, "My relationship with the prince can't be better in this life." "My lord." Prince Gong raised his hand to stop what she was about to say, and said with a sneer, "I have tried several times over the past 2 years, both openly and secretly, and the boss has learned to be patient, and he seems to be in harmony with me, but I know that the threshold between us is I can't get past it, and I'm too lazy to stick to his cold ass, but you and Elephant can have a better relationship with them." Princess Gong couldn't help but said, "My lord, we are a family, we will prosper together, and we will lose if we lose." King Gong shook his head. "Now the mother is still here, the mother, she is strict with me, but she likes you and Xiang'er very much, and the crown prince has no ill feelings towards you either. You and the crown princess don't need to be too close. A deep friendship is just fine on the face." He said, "My fief has been cut twice, and the royal father loves me. Before daxing, he will definitely find a way to add some more to me. The rest will depend on the prince's actions afterward." The princess was frightened. "Didn't you still talk about the Luozu medical office just now?" "We're talking about the Luozu medical office," said King Gong. "It's useless for me to please the crown prince. We have hatred between us, but you and Xiang'er can do it." "The matter of the Luozu medical office is an opportunity," he said. "I don't plan to intervene. I will give you the staff of the palace. If Zhou Man asks you for help, you will do it. If you don't ask, I'll take it by the side to help." He snorted coldly. "Didn't she save her apprentice and daughter-in-law today? In 2 days, you will find an excuse to send some supplements to settle down. This is the attitude of the palace. Then your highness still shows such a face to Lord Zhou." Prince Gong said righteously, "Without the evil of this king, how can you show your consideration and reason? The main reason is that Zhou Man is too hateful. He hates her when he sees her, or it's a physiological hatred." Prince Gong touched his stomach. His swollen face turned out to be a little sad. He felt a little hungry, but he was clearly full. He glanced at the door and said in a low voice, "It's almost New Year's Eve, is the kitchen making meatballs? Let someone cook a bowl and bring it up." "Princess Gong, Your Highness, you haven't eaten dinner for an hour." King Gong said, "This is a late-night snack. My lord, Lord Zhou is here, waiting outside." Prince Gong leaned on the soft couch with a lifeless expression on his face. Princess Gong smiled, got up and said, "Quickly invite Lord Zhou in." Man Bao came in with a lot of cakes and said, "I seem to have heard a late-night snack just now. Are you going to have a late-night snack now? She hasn't had dinner yet." Man Bao asked, "What's there for supper?" So after 3/4 of an hour, King Gong, who was sweating a lot after the herbal moxibustion, was pierced with a lot of needles by Man Bao, and then she took a bowl of meatballs and sat on a chair beside her to eat. Prince Gong closed his eyes fiercely, just not looking at her, but unfortunately he still needs to inhale through his nose, otherwise he would like to close his nose too. After Man Bao finished eating a bowl of meatballs, he handed the bowl to the maid, and happily said to Princess Gong, "It's delicious, and the chefs in the palace are good at cooking. No wonder King Gong and Xiao Shizi have gained so much weight." Princess Gong smiled and said, "Lord Zhou likes it? I'll ask them to make you a different flavor tomorrow. Our meatballs also come in many flavors." Man Bao hurriedly responded. Just as she was about to discuss it in depth, she noticed an unfriendly gaze. She turned her head to look, and met the vicious gaze of King Gong. After a meal, Man Bao felt that as a doctor, she couldn't torture the patient, not to mention that she only gained momentum today through the prestige of Prince Gong's mansion, so she changed the subject and stopped talking about food. "How does the prince feel on his legs at this time? Is there any warm airflow?" "Flowing." King Gong's face looked a little better now, and after a snort, he said Man Bao breathed a sigh of relief, and smiled with Prince Gong, "Your Highness has an injury on his leg, so it will be sore on snowy and cold days. I don't know if there is a soup pool next to Luoyang. If there is, Your Highness can buy a separate courtyard. Going to live by the soup pool, it will be better to have bubble feed." He added, "Other than that, it's medicinal moxibustion and acupuncture, which can force out the rheumatism and cold on the legs, and help the yang to return to the origin. This will make you feel better, but..." Man Bao looked up and down at King Gong's body. Princess Gong was very concerned about King Gong's physical condition, and immediately asked, "Just what?" "It's just that His Royal Highness should lose weight," she said. "Being overweight puts a heavy burden on the legs, especially the joints and injured parts, so weight loss cannot be delayed." King Gong said, "This king has a pain in his leg and can't climb the mountain." Man Bao said confidently, "Don't worry, I have found several sets of weight loss exercises that don't require legs, and I will teach you when I make a plan." Prince Gong hated Zhou Man even more, and wanted to shoot people out, but after looking at Princess Gong, he turned his head away and endured silently. See you at 6 p.m. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2810. Man Bao returned to the yard where she lived. The yard had already turned on the lights. Man Bao put the medicine box on the side. After ordering some late-night snacks, she ordered the cake to light 2 more lights. She took out a lot of white paper and studied it. While thinking about the weight loss plan of Prince Gong and the little prince. The father and son are in different situations, so naturally they can't share a plan, and the younger son still has to go to school, but there are some things in common, just let them supervise each other. Man Bao made the plan until late at night. After waking up the next day, he exercised. After breakfast, he began to improve the plan. He also looked at the daily routines and meals of Prince Gong and Xiao Shizi, and watched them finish their breakfast and lunch. Food, she probably has the number. Man Bao decided to reduce the amount of food for them, but increase the frequency of eating, eat less and eat more meals, so as not to fatten the pig. While Man Bao was working hard in Prince Gong's mansion, Imperial physician Lu and Xiao Tan followed officials from the Censor Terrace and Dali Temple into the city. They didn't stop and went directly to the county office. County Magistrate Luo was already prepared, but he didn't expect them to come so quickly, but he responded quickly and immediately greeted everyone with a look of surprise. They were different from Zhou Man. They came here for this case, so after eating and washing their faces, they went to work and immediately saw Zheng Gu in the lobby. Zheng Gu's clothes were fairly clean, except for his pale face, which seemed to be fine. But whether it was the experienced officials of Dali Temple and the Imperial Censorship Office, or the Imperial physicians Lu and Xiao Tan from the Imperial Hospital, they could see something was wrong at a glance. The two of them were not polite, and went straight up and ripped open the front of Zheng Gu's body, revealing the bloody whip wound inside. Imperial physician Lu sneered, "Look at this trace, it was beaten yesterday. I wonder what evidence Luo County Magistrate got." The Magistrate Luo immediately turned his head to look at the arresting head, and the arresting head thumped and knelt down and said, "Yes, it is because of the humble position and the eagerness to make contributions." Seeing that the suspect has been slow to confess, he couldn't help but use the punishment. The Magistrate Luo then smiled and said, "It's torture, it's normal for the suspect to be disobedient, so it's normal to use some means. What does Master Yu think?" Master Yu is an official of Dali Temple. In addition to the Ministry of Punishment and Jingzhou Mansion in the capital, Dali Temple is one of the leaders in the use of punishment. Master Yu didn't have much expression on his face, and said coldly, "Master Luo said that Master Xiao Zheng is a suspect. What is the proof?" The magistrate of Luo immediately reached out and handed over a few pieces of paper, saying, "This is a piece of paper sent by 5 poor households. They all sued the Luozhu Medical Bureau for prescribing counterfeit medicines for them." He took a few pieces of paper from the master again. "This is the prescription confiscated from the Luozhu Medical Office, as well as the medicinal dregs from the 5 homes, all of which have been sealed. After identification by many doctors, some of them are the 2 medicinal materials are fake, and it is precisely because of the use of such fake medicines that the patient died." Master Yu read them one by one, and then handed the items to Master Xia at the censor desk. Master Xia flipped through the pages and found that there were not many items, so he finished reading them in 3 or 2 times. He paid attention to the time on the paper, and handed it to the Imperial Medical Office physician Lu and physician Xiao Tan. Master Yu asked, "Where's the confession?" The county magistrate Luo sighed. "Zheng Gu has been reluctant to open his mouth since he was brought to justice, refusing to cooperate. That's why the arresting head couldn't help but use the punishment." Zheng Gu raised his head and gritted his teeth. "You lied." Master Yu ignored him and continued to ask the magistrate Luo, "Where are the confessions of the 5 plaintiffs?" The magistrate Luo was stunned for a moment and then immediately looked at the master. The master immediately turned over the case, and then presented a booklet. Mr. Yu took it and started to read slowly. Mr. Xia, who was on the side, began to ask Luo County Magistrate, "Why didn't you report the case after the incident? Luozhu Medical Department is also a department of the Imperial Court, and the local county government has no right to directly convict." Luo County Magistrate immediately gave the reason for the discussion yesterday. Xiaoguan reported the situation immediately after he learned of the situation, but the official sent out was delayed, and no official document came back. Xiaoguan panicked, thinking that it was because the road was blocked. The heavy snow blocked, the officials in the capital could not make it, and the people's grievances were boiling, so Zheng Gu was taken into custody without authorization. Master Xia asked, "When did the case happen?" The county magistrate Luo had already done a review and said, December 13th. Seeing that there was no expression on the faces of Master Xia and Master Yu, the magistrate Luo could only take the initiative to say, but the lower official heard about this at the 8th of the 11th lunar month. He said, after careful inspection by the official, although there is no conclusive evidence, there are some problems with the purchase of medicinal materials by the Luozhu Medical Office. Therefore, on the 10th day of the first month of November, the official wrote an official document and submitted it to the official to report it, but it was not until the 10th day of the month. The ERURN didn't come back, and there was no official document from the capital. This case arose when Xiaoguan was about to send another team, because there was a death lawsuit, and there were rumors outside that the Luozhu Medical Office Zhongzhong used fake medicines for everyone. The people's grievances were hard to disappear, and the lower officials were helpless, so Zhenggu was taken into custody, not only to find out the truth as soon as possible, but also to protect Zhenggu. Imperial physician Lu sneered, "Do you protect him to the point of punishment?" Luo County magistrate only smiled bitterly and did not answer. Imperial physician Lu snorted coldly. He had seen this kind of trick a lot in the palace, and Master Yu and Master Xia were naturally not uncommon in the capital. So no one paid any attention to his wry smile. Master Yu read the confession, handed it over to Master Xia, and asked, since there are rumors and rumors, before the 5 families, who else had problems with the medicines from the medical department? The county magistrate lowered his eyes and thought for a moment, then said, this, but there is no specific, but everyone said that the recovery with the medicine of the medical department is slow. It is obviously a common disease, but it takes more than 10 days of medicine. It's good, and some, they just don't eat well. Zhenggu has been enduring. After all, the adults are asking questions. It's not good for him to interject, but he can't help it now, and he said, what a wealthy family can come to the medical office for free medicine? Some old husbands were overworked when they came, and they had no breath left. They had to take medicine for a long time to condition their bodies, and they could eat as long as they lived. The other is the pain in the body. The medicine can't cure them, it just relieves the pain in their body, so that they can die with dignity, and finally live a less painful life. Zhenggu said, if you don't look at the patient's health, the disease is generally classified as having been taking medicine and cannot be cured, thus convicting Xiaoguan. Then Xiaoguan has nothing to say. Master Yu raised his eyebrows, finally looked at Zhenggu, and asked, only poor people come to the Luozhu medical office to ask for medicine? How can the Luozhu medical office continue? No, there are also wealthy households, Zhenggu said, these people receive money. He said, our imperial physician's office has long ago stipulated that you must bring proof of household registration and tax payment when you visit your home for a doctor. Lower households can consult and prescribe medicines free of charge. Both the middle and upper households have normal drug prices, and the consultation fee is also it's all fixed, and it doesn't require much. Of course, according to their old tradition, some wealthy households will give a red envelope that exceeds the consultation fee if they visit a doctor. These are all personal to them, and they will not refuse. Imperial physician Lu, we are envoys sent by God, ha 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 ha. See you at 10 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2811. Mr. Yu pondered, and asked thoughtfully, are there many people who come to the door to invite Mr. Xiao Zheng to see the doctor? Zhenggu said, it's okay. He glanced at the magistrate of Luo, grinned and said, in Luoyang City, from Prince Gong's mansion to an ordinary merchant, anyone who can afford the price of my visit has invited me. Not only did he come from the Zheng family of the Xinglan family, but he also studied at the imperial physician's office. He was also the eldest disciple of the genius Dr. Zhou Man. Just because of these names, he should not invite too many people. There were also many people from other counties in Luozhu who came to invite him. After all, the Luozhu Medical Bureau nominally managed the entire Luozhu. Oh, by the way, The Luozhou Medical Office also has another function, that is, to see a doctor for the officials in Los Angeles to ensure their health, no fees for consultation, and no fees for medicines that go away from the medical office. Out. When prescribing prescriptions for other patients, the medical office only records the prescriptions and will not give them to the other patients. He has been in Luoyang for a few years. Luozhou has 9 counties under its jurisdiction. He has traveled to each county, and the magistrate of each county has gone to the clinic, and even the magistrates of 4 of them have changed. He has been ill. He believed that he still had some friendship with them, and even had the best relationship with the magistrate Luo, so when he was arrested by Magistrate Luo, he was as shocked as if he had been thrown a basin of ice water, and when his wife was dragged out so roughly, he was even more saddened. If it wasn't for the fact that a prison guard quietly told him that Erniangan was rescued by his master last night, he might not have survived yesterday's punishment. Zheng Gu stared at Luo County Magistrate angrily and said, I have been to the 9 county offices in Luozhou, and among them, I have come to Luoyang County office the most times. There is no need for consultation fee to go to the doctor with the official's family, but the magistrate Luo gave a red seal every time, and the lower official thought we got along very well. The magistrate Luo said with a serious face, yes, we get along well, but I will never bend the law for personal gain. Zheng Gu was full of anger, and nodded again and again, yes, the lower officials do not ask Lord Luo to bend the law for personal gain, but fairness and justice can always be done, no matter what the public grievances are boiling. It is almost time for dinner when the servants come to the door. However, there are still many patients in the medical office who come to seek medical treatment. If the people are angry, and if the people of Luoyang do not trust our medical office, why do they still come? Everyone turned to look at Magistrate Luo, wanting to hear how he answered. The magistrate of Luo sighed and said, people's livelihood is so difficult, some poor people really have no money to see a doctor and get medicine, even if they know that the medicine from the medical office may be fake, but because the medical office is free, they can only take the risk to get the medicine. Not bad, Zheng Gu suddenly shouted violently, startling everyone, and saw him stand up from his chair excitedly, staring at the magistrate Luo with wide eyes, looking at him word by word. How difficult is the people's livelihood, the poor can only see a doctor and get medicine from the medical office, and only the medical office can give them a chance, so the medical office must not be cancelled. He turned his head to look at Master Yu and Master Xia, and said with red eyes, even if the sewage on the lower official's body is not clean, the Imperial Physician's office and the local medical office must not be cancelled. Master Yu couldn't help sitting up straight, turned his head and looked at Master Xia, vaguely feeling the reason why Luozhou targeted the Imperial Physician's office. Imperial Physician Lu pursed his lips, and even Tai Physician Tan, who had always been kind, couldn't help but look serious. Luo County Magistrate frowned slightly, his eyes were a little cold, and he looked at Zheng Gu and said softly, Sir Xiao Zheng misunderstood, the county government is looking at the case and investigating the case, I don't know why Xiao Zheng thinks so. Can you cover up what you have done under the banner? Okay, Mr. Yu interrupted the confrontation between the two, handed the things in his hand to the clerk behind him, got up and said, these things are sealed first, we will always find out what happened. Shi Tai and the Imperial Physician's office came here to handle this case. He said to Zheng Gu, who was standing beside him, Master Xiao Zheng, please go back to the medical office first. You must not leave Luoyang City until the case is cleared, and you can be called at any time. Zheng Gu raised his hand and gave a deep bow, and replied, yes. The county magistrate Luo's expression changed slightly, and he couldn't help but say, Sir, can't you just let him go? He's a suspect. Master Yu said, this is in compliance with the law. Zheng Gu is an official. Before there is conclusive evidence to prove that the counterfeit medicine in the medical office is his intentional purchase, he does not need to take it in custody. He added, what's more, if you can run, the monk can't run away from the temple. He pointedly looked at Zheng Gu and said, Jishitang is not far away, and the Zheng family is not too small. This official thinks that Mr. Zheng should not ignore the family, right? The Dajin law still has a system of continuous sitting, although it is rarely used, but if Zheng Gu really runs away, the court will not arrest all of Zheng's people, but Ji Shitang does not want to continue to open it. Searching Ji Shitang in the name of a search, the value obtained is much greater than that of Zheng Gyuk. Therefore, there are not many people in this world who can abandon their families and run away, and people who don't care about their families and their lives in this way can't be called human beings in the eyes of the world. He didn't think Zheng Gu was such a person. Zheng Gu is indeed not, he said solemnly, Xiaoguan will not flee. Zheng Gu glanced at the magistrate Luo, turned around, and bowed to the Dr. Lu and the Dr. Xiao Tan, and then walked out stiffly. Dr. Xiao Tan instructed the entourage behind him, send Lord Xiao Zheng back to the medical office. Outside the county office, shopkeeper Zhengda and others who got the news in advance were waiting outside early in the morning, but they couldn't get in. They wanted to wait for Imperial Physician Lu to ask about the situation, but when they saw Zheng Gu being helped out, their eyes lit up, and they immediately brought people up to meet them. Zheng Gu. Zheng Gu's eyes turned red when he saw the shopkeeper Zhengda. Father. Shopkeeper Zhengda stretched out his hand to support him, and shopkeeper Zheng Ju asked excitedly, is this all right? No, Zheng Gu said, I just go back to the medical office first, so I don't need to take custody. Although I didn't find out, it's good to come out. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. The shopkeeper Zheng said, it's good to come out. It's so cold now, how can you stay in the prison? Zheng Gu hurriedly asked, Father, how is the second mother? She's all right. I sent her back to Angia, where she is now raising a baby. Zheng Gu let out a breath, looked left and right, and asked, where's the master? She's not an angel, is she, because she wants to be intimate? She's an angel, but she was sent to see King Gong's doctor, Manager Zheng explained to him, she really wants to be private, so she can't come here today. Alas, I don't know if she can meet with Imperial Physician Lu and the others. After all, her identity is to avoid suspicion. The shopkeeper Zhengda had a lot of things to ask Zheng Gu, but the fourth master Zheng on the side said, let's go back and talk about it. I think Zheng Gu's face is pale, have they tortured you? The shopkeeper Zheng had already found out, and he sighed, let's go back and talk about it first. Forewarning, I will make up for it tomorrow, I can't swallow the keyboard. See you tomorrow. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2812. Mr. Yu and the others didn't leave, because they needed to take over a lot of things that were sealed up. In addition to confessions and petitions, there were also official documents, medical records, prescriptions, and various medicinal materials they searched back from the medical office. Everything about this case must be taken over by them, but there are quite a lot of things, so Master Yu and the others decided to seal it up first and then study it slowly. By the time they were done, it was getting dark. The four of them washed their faces as soon as they entered the city. They were all tired and hungry at the moment. After bathing, they gathered together to eat while discussing the case. Both Imperial Physician Lu and Imperial Physician Xiao Tan were flipping through an account book, which was sent back to Zhou Man by Zheng Gu before, and Zhou Man handed it in later. They have read it more than once, and at this time it is just a comparison with the previous account books. When Imperial Physician Lu found it, he pushed the two ledger books together to show Master Yu, this is the list and expenditure of medicinal materials purchased in September last year. Compared with this year, the purchase in the same period last year was less than one-third of this year's. In the next 2 months, the difference was bigger, and by November, he had purchased 5 times the amount of cold-preventing medicinal materials and anti-epidemic medicinal materials that he had purchased in the same period last year. Mr. Yu made a careful comparison. The account book is also attached with a list of purchased medicinal materials. After pasting, it is folded and stuffed in the booklet, so that it can be seen intuitively. Master Yu checked it, couldn't help but let out a snort, and said with a smile, "This method is intuitive. How did your imperial physician think of it?" Imperial physician Lu lifted his eyelids and glanced at him and said, "When the imperial physician office was first established, there were a lot of things purchased, and it was too cumbersome to write the purchase list one by one in the account book when it was busy, so Imperial Physician Joe simply recorded it in the account book. Expenses, and then paste the purchase list directly on that page, which is both clear at a glance and saves a lot of effort, and I can transcribe it later when I have free time. But generally speaking, they don't have any more free time, so the books have always been like this. Obviously, Zhenggu was so busy for a while last year, so he was lazy like this. This year, I carefully recorded the purchase order in the account book one by one." Master Yu knocked on the table and thought, picked up a steamed bun and took a bite. On the side, Master Xia spread out a long and thick book, pointed to the list on it and said, "This is the list of diagnosis and treatment starting from the 2nd day of October. It's twice as long, and it seems that there are more people going forward." After turning a few pages, he said, "And the people who came to consult not only people from Luoyang County, but also people from other counties to seek medical treatment. Are all poor people?" "No, half and half," he said, "and quite a few are asking for medicine on their behalf." Master Xia showed everyone this paragraph. The list above has a tilde behind it, recording the names of two people. One is the name of the patient, and the other is the name of the person who took the medicine. Master Xia couldn't help sighing, "I remember very carefully." Such careful account books are generally unlikely to be fake, because there are household registration addresses, age, and names on them, and they are almost guaranteed to be checked. This is not the case with fake accounts. Even the censor, Master Xia, couldn't help but sigh, and when they discussed it until late at night, when they went back to the room to sleep, Master Xia couldn't help but say to Master Yu, who was in the same room, "Such a detailed account is the only one for the Ministry of Households. If it can be done, the Imperial Physician Department is much stronger than many departments, and I don't know how Xiao Yuan Zheng taught these people." Master Yu sneered, "You haven't checked the accounts of the Tai hospital before? Was this account made by Xiao Yuan Zheng?" He said, "I think this is a teacher's inheritance, and it has nothing to do with Xiao Yuan Zheng." Master Yu also felt comfortable with this account. He lay on the bed and said thoughtfully, "Speaking of which, Zhou Man has always been a doctor of the Imperial Physician's Office, and the establishment of the Imperial Physician's Office was based on her suggestion. One of the senior elders, so other students in the Imperial Physician Office also learn this way of accounting, right?" Master Xia smiled and said, "Then it will be much more convenient to check the accounts of the Imperial Physician's Office in the future. The censorship office monitors hundreds of officials, and the Dali Temple is simply the place to hear officials, royal family members, and dignitaries, as well as some major cases. They review the accounts of officials and various departments the most. Spit on your head, you are at least from the Ming dynasty, can you have a little more brains when you do accounting? But it's hard to say. Both of them are very experienced officials, and they have also been in contact with the beautifully done accounts for fake accounts, but the details are like this, plus there are corresponding storage accounts, they are basically true." Mr. Yu thought thoughtfully, if he wants to make money, he can be greedy by doing a few tricks on the accounts. There is no need to spend a lot of time on counterfeit medicines, which will not only kill the patient, but also easily happen. Lord Xia nodded, "I also tend to believe that he is innocent. At least, he didn't know about the counterfeit medicine. That's the two possibilities of dereliction of duty and being framed. Most of the people considered the former at first, and they didn't think Zhenggu would deliberately buy fake medicines. He is a young master of Ji Shitang, and he is not short of money. How much money can the two counterfeit medicines bring him? Except for people who are naturally greedy, only a fool would do such a thing. If you are negligent, you have to check the person who handled this batch of medicinal materials, as well as the pharmacist he purchased. Master Yu had already lay down, pulled the quilt to cover his body. Let's check tomorrow, we'll see Zheng tomorrow, he's the person involved, he should know more about this matter, and what, Master Yu didn't say. And he purchased so many cold-proof and epidemic-proof medicinal materials, Master Xia said quietly. Obviously, it has been foreseen that there will be a cold disaster in Luozhou. What is the disaster situation in Luozhou? Why hasn't the capital received a disaster report from Luozhou? Nowadays, he is diligent and caring for the people, and he has made 3 orders and 5 applications. Every local disaster must be reported, especially after the Shenzhou flood was concealed and delayed in reporting a few years ago, which caused no small consequences. Concealing the disaster situation, as soon as there is any natural or man-made disaster, it will be reported to the capital. It doesn't matter whether the emperor and the court give relief or not. Anyway, let me tell you. It is true that the emperor and the court would not give money for relief casually. Most disasters require the local self-help, and then officials from the censor's desk or Dali temple will be dispatched to inspect the local area. Therefore, Mr. Xia reasonably suspected that the officials of Luozhou concealed the disaster in order to prevent officials from the censor terrace and Dali temple from visiting the disaster. Master Yu is also so suspicious, but without evidence, such words cannot be spoken casually, even if the two of them are working on the same case this time. See you at 4 p.m. Yesterday I saw a comment saying that swallowing the keyboard in live broadcast can offset all the debts, and I was moved for a moment. But think about it or forget it, honestly make up for it. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2813. Zhenggu returned to the backyard of the medical office, which had been copied over and over again, and things were thrown everywhere, even the quilts and so on fell to the ground. Shopkeeper Zheng saw it and frowned slightly. Cold pots and stoves, even the house is cold, how can I live here? Shopkeeper Zhengju also said, why don't you stay at my house first? Or go to Ji Shitang? No, Zhenggu said, at this time, the less involvement I have with Ji Shitang, the better. You are from the Zheng family, so there is no way you can separate yourself from Ji Shitang, the shopkeeper Zheng said angrily. If we want to not get involved, unless our father and son cut off our relationship. Zhenggu said helplessly, Father, I live in the medical office and have less contact with Ji Shitang. At least this time Ji Shitang is not so eye-catching. Manager Zhengju agreed, but he couldn't let them live in the medical office just like that. He said, I'll find some servants to clean and tidy up. After the kitchen is heated up, the house will be ready for people to live in. When shopkeeper Zhengju left, Master Zheng Si shoved the medicine box into the hands of shopkeeper Zhengda and said, Brother, give Zhenggu some medicine. Shopkeeper Zhengda looked left and right, and could only reluctantly gather a brazier to give Zhenggu medicine. When Zhou Man saw Zhenggu, it was already the second day after he was released from prison. Coincidentally, Mr. Yu and the others also read the case file and came to the medical office to investigate. Zhou Man's carriage came from the north road, and Master Yu and his carriage came from the south road. The two teams of carriages converged in front of the medical office. Master Yu got off the carriage, and was looking at the palace carriage that had just stopped in front of him with some doubts, when the curtain was lifted, and a very familiar person came out from inside bending over. Master Yu. Man Bao leaned over holding the cake's hand, looked up first, smiled when he saw Master Yu and the others, stepped on the stool happily, and bowed. "It's a coincidence, I didn't expect it to be possible today. Meet Master Yu and Master Xia." After Man Bao finished speaking, he glanced at the back and added, "There are also Imperial Dr. Lu and Imperial Dr. Xiao Tan. Imperial Physician Lu and Thai Physician Xiao Tan, you can't ignore them just because they are both from the Imperial Physician's office." Master Yu had a headache and reminded, "Master Zhou, Zheng Gu is involved in this case. As a rule, you have to be private." Man Bao nodded, "Don't worry, I won't stop the investigation." "You can come to me if you need help," she said with a smile, "I can trust my disciple." Master Yu tentatively said, "If it is said that Master Xiao Zheng is intentional, I don't really believe it, but if I don't detect fake medicinal materials for a while." He paused and sighed, "This is actually forgivable. After work, who doesn't make mistakes?" Man Bao became serious and didn't say that Zheng Gu was definitely not wrong. After all, she had not seen Zheng Gu or the batch of fake medicinal materials, but just stated a fact. On the identification of medicinal materials, Zheng Gu can be a pharmacist in the Imperial Physician's office. The students who have graduated, their abilities are still higher than mine. Master Yu's eyes flickered slightly, and he turned his head and looked at Master Xia. Master Xia simply turned his head to look at Imperial Dr. Lu, who was standing beside him. "What does Imperial Dr. Lu think?" Imperial Physician Lu nodded and said, "Zheng Gu's family background, because he worked as a small shopkeeper in Ji Shitang for several years, he really knows the medicinal materials very well, and it is not worse than our old imperial doctors, and because his family is a pharmacy, he concocted it. The herbs are also more skilled than us." Master Yu said, "Let's go in, Master Xiao Zheng should be in a hurry." Someone knocked on the door, but the door of the medical office was not closed at all, and it opened with a push. The medical department is not a big family like the county government. The Imperial Medical Department is backed by the Emperor's internal treasury and is not very rich. Choose a more suitable place from the official assets to be converted into a hospital. If not, buy land to build a house or buy a house. The Luoyang Medical Center is a hospital with 3 entrances selected from the official assets. This is a house recovered from the former county government's raid. It is usually listed for sale, but for some reason it has not been sold. The location of this place is good. There is a spacious street in front of it. Luoyang is also divided into inner and outer cities. It happens to be in the outer city, but bypassing an intersection is the place to enter the inner city. If the place is in the outer city, there are many poor people faced. This house, when you enter the gate, is a spacious yard with only 2 trees. There are many chairs and stools scattered in the yard. Master Yu and the others paused. Although a lot of things were smashed, you can still see the original layout. Zheng Gu obviously arranged many chairs and stools in the yard, which should be for patients who came to consult. There was still a long table in the corridor, and some cups fell on the ground. Master Yu glanced down and saw some yellow soup in the quilt, which should be medicinal soup or tea soup for keeping out the cold. After passing through the hanging flower door, and then entering, you will find the main room and the left and right hatches in the inner courtyard. Most of the doors were open, and the east wing was opened. Inside were rows of medicine cabinets. Before they entered the door, they smelled a faint aroma of medicine. Seeing that the counter was in a mess, Zhou Man couldn't help frowning. He went around the counter and pulled open the medicine cabinet. Seeing that it was empty, there were only some uncollected medicine dregs, so he pushed the medicine cabinet back in anger. Master Yu and Master Xia also frowned. The east wing was opened into a pharmacy, while the west wing was divided into small rooms. Push the door open to enter, and the room inside was divided into 2. There were very few things inside. There were 2 beds on one side, a table, 4 stools, and nothing else. Zhou Man and Tai Lu and Tai Tan knew that this was the ward with just a glance, and explained this to Master Yu and Master Xia. Master Yu thought thoughtfully, so the medical department still admits patients. Zhou Man said indifferently, some patients are seriously ill and can't move for the time being, so they can only live in the medical office. Master Yu nodded. The lobby of the main room is still left, which should be used for banquets. The rooms on the left and right have their doors removed, and they are only hung with curtains and signs on them. Master Yu looked at it and said, apart from Master Xiaozheng, there are 2 other doctors in this medical office. Imperial Physician Lu explained, the local medical office has complicated affairs, and he alone is not enough. If the Imperial Medical Office does not send him enough doctors, then he has the right to hire a doctor in the local area. Master Yu nodded, and Master Xia pointed to a sign next to him and said, this is a classic medicine, and he is also a medical officer. Where has he gone? When Imperial Physician Lu saw him looking at him, he said rudely, where do I know where to go? They came together, ask him. Shouldn't I ask Luo County Magistrate? Master Yu coughed lightly, let's take a look at the back. Master Xiaozheng should live in the backyard of the medical office. The third entry after that is the residence of the officials of the medical department and their families. There was a small door in the back of the main room. The small door was very thick and was firmly locked. Master Yu pushed it and found that the door was locked from the inside and outside, which meant that they could not go to the back from here. Several people looked at each other with embarrassment, as if they had gone to the wrong place. See you at 6 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2814. Everyone could only turn around and go out, bypassing the gate and entering an alley. This alley can only allow one carriage to pass through. There are 2 corner doors, one of which is locked from the outside with a large lock, and the corner door at the back is wide open, and there are quite a few people standing there. 2 people were exposed. The 2 inadvertently turned their heads and saw a group of people in official uniforms rushing towards them. So a lot of people ran out of the corner door and ran straight away. Some people still carried baskets in their hands. The eggs they didn't put down in time flew out, and they drew a line in the air and flew directly towards Master Yu and the others. Man Bao reached out and took one, and with a soft sound, the egg liquid flowed down from her fingertips, and the others fell to the ground and hit the wall. Crowd. The shopkeeper Zheng De also hurriedly came out to take a look, and when he saw it was them, he breathed a sigh of relief. He squeezed out a smile and stepped forward, the adults are here. When he saw the egg in Zhou Man's hand, his eyes widened slightly, and he quickly turned sideways and said, come in and wash, come and bring a basin of hot water. After entering the corner gate, they found a lot of things on the ground, including rice and noodles, as well as a jar with pickled vegetables, eggs, bacon, and 2 lamb legs that looked very fresh. Master Yu retracted his gaze to look at the composition of the backyard, but Master Xia's expression softened a lot and asked, who are those people? Shopkeeper Zheng replied cautiously, they are all patients that Inyazi has seen before. Hearing that Inyazi has returned home, he brought some things to visit. We didn't want to accept it, but the adults suddenly came when we refused. Everyone was startled and ran away. He said, I will have people send these things back to them in a while. Master Xia asked, do you know who they are and where are they? Shopkeeper Zheng De, he really doesn't know, not only he doesn't know, I'm afraid even Zheng Gu can't fully recognize it. He has seen so many patients. If it weren't for frequent patients and neighbors, who would remember this how many patients? Master Xia knew it at a glance, and said, if you can't send it back, don't waste it, just stay. But Man Bao said, put the things at the door and let them come back and pick them up by themselves. She paused and said, let Zhenggu write a letter of shame and post it out. Man Bao asked, where is Zhenggu now? It's in the house, the shopkeeper Zheng said immediately, he was injured and had a fever last night, so. Everyone went to the main hall and waited. Not all Zhenggu lived in the backyard. It was divided into 3 small yards. The one on the left facing the street was lived by Zhenggu's family. There was another corner door in the other alley. It is the residence of the Dianyeo family, and there is a small courtyard shared by the 2 doctors he hired. Although it is divided into 3 small yards, it is not small, at least it is more than enough for a family to live with 1 or 2 servants. Because it was copied, things were a little messy, but the main hall was cleaned up, and the things that should be sorted out were sorted. Everyone looked at each other, and finally looked at Joe Man together. Master Yu and the others suddenly thought of a question. Among them, the highest official seems to be Joe Man. Man Bao didn't realize it yet. After entering the hall, he found a chair that couldn't go up or down and sat down. Seeing that Master Yu and Master Xia were still standing, he stood up again and explained, "Don't worry, I will not interfere, I just came to see my apprentice, and you can ask whatever you want in a while." She sighed, "I also want to know the truth. The 2 adults also know that the imperial physician's office was built by me. If there is such a problem, even if Zhenggu is not my disciple, I can't blame it." Master Yu looked at the rest of the seats, and was too lazy to argue with Joe Man about the issue of intimacy and privacy. He pointed to the first person on the left and said, "Master Joe, please take a seat." It was only now that Man Bao came to his senses. If she stayed, it seemed that she should indeed sit in this position. She hesitated for a moment, then sat down first on the left. Shopkeeper Zheng asked the servants to make tea for them. There were not many servants. Except for the cook who cooked the fire in the kitchen, which was brought by Angia, the others were brought by shopkeeper Zheng and Master Zheng Si from the capital. People, there is not even a girl in it, they are all servants and servants. But this is also convenient, and it is particularly powerful when holding Zhenggu out. Zhenggu was wearing thick clothes, and his face was a little pale, but his cheeks were a little red, and it looked like he had a fever. Joe Man raised his eyes and glanced at him, frowning slightly. Zhenggu's eyes were hot when he saw her, and he bowed to her first, "Master." Joe Man nodded and glanced carefully at Master Yu and Master Xia. After holding back, he still couldn't hold back. He waved to Zhenggu and said, "I'll check your pulse." Zhenggu first bowed to Master Yu and Master Xia before stepping forward, rolling up his sleeves and reaching out. Master Yu and Master Xia just pretended they couldn't see it, and waited for Joe Man to stop before asking, "How is Master Xiao Zheng's body? Can it withstand their cross-examination? But don't ask halfway and faint." Joe Man thought they were concerned about Zhenggu's body, and was a little moved, nodded, and said, "It's okay, it's a low-grade fever, drink more hot water, and take 2 more medicines." Master Yu nodded reassuringly, and said to Zhenggu, "Since there is no major problem with Master Xiao Zheng's body, let's start." The clerk behind them immediately took out the book and found a place to sit, and looked up at Zhenggu, who was opposite. Zhenggu. He couldn't help turning his head to look at the master. Joe Man lifted his eyelids and glanced at him, pointed to a position opposite Master Xia and said, "What are you doing? Sit down and talk to me." Zhenggu sat down, so the 2 of them, master and apprentice, sat on the left, and Master Yu sat opposite them with the 2 clerks behind them. It's not like trying to judge him, but it's like trying to judge their master and apprentice. The thought flashed by, Zhenggu moved a little uncomfortably, he didn't care about the whiplash on his body, he sat upright and said, "Adults, ask." Master Yu asked, "Where's your ancient medicine?" Zhenggu sighed and said, "Run away." Master Yu, he can run away. Could it be that his family can run away? Zhenggu said, "His family, 2 doctors, and the servants of our 3 families are all taken in prison with me." This is what Zhenggu wanted to say, and said, "I'll just wait for the suspects, there's really no need for my family to be involved, and I also ask Master Yu to be gracious to let their family out, the weather is cold at this time, and it's not so easy to stay in prison. Of. Master Yu thought thoughtfully and asked, when did the ancient medicine run? See you at 9. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2815. Zhenggu thought for a while and said, it was too chaotic that day, and the yamen came in at the time of the noon break. He said helplessly, I was in the backyard at the time, not in the front medical office, but when I heard that they broke in, they wanted to take someone. At that time, I vaguely heard 2 doctors going to stop me, and the lower official was going to go forward. But standing at the small door, I heard the yamen shove the patient and the patient's family, saying that I was using fake medicine in the hospital and killed people. He paused for a moment, leaving time for Master Yu and Master Xia to react, and then continued after a while, I had a wrong intuition, so I went back and closed the small door, then wrote a letter and put the 2. This account book is handed over to the servants to take away and send to the capital for Master. Master Yu glanced at Zhou Man and asked, why is the medical office's account book in the backyard? Zhenggu said, in fact, there were accounts books for the whole year of this year in my backyard study at that time, including every purchase order. He said, as the Chinese New Year is approaching, the medical office needs to keep accounts, and the general ledger has to be reported back to the Imperial Medical Office for review. If it's cold today, I hardly have time to do these things during the day, but I do them all at night, so I brought back all the account books. Do it in the backyard study. The front is empty, and the brazier needs an extra one. Where can I have a comfortable study at home? And there is a wall in front and back, so Zhenggu took the things home and made them regardless of public and private. Looking back at this time, I don't know if it was fortunate or unfortunate. In other words, you didn't know where the ancient medicine was when it happened. Yes, Zhenggu paused and then said, the 4 of us, including the servants, were all arrested that day. The next day I found out that there was no alchemy in the prison. I heard what they meant and ran away. This is in line with the statement of the magistrate Luo. The magistrate Luo also said that he had run away with an ancient medicine. The ancient medicine was not in the house on the day of the arrest, and it was suspected that Zhenggu sent him out. Master Yu came back to his senses and continued to the next question, Master Xiaozheng, let's talk about the fake medicine eating dead people. Zhenggu sighed and said, on the 3rd day of the 1st month of November, I bought another batch of medicinal materials, which were checked and put into storage. Since the beginning of winter, the number of sick people has increased due to the cold weather, and people from other counties have come to ask for medicine. But such patients are, after all, a minority. He said, although the medical office is located in Luoyang, it is the Luozhou medical office, and you have responsibilities to the other 8 counties, so I will take the medicinal materials to other counties every once in a while to voluntarily treat the poor and cold people. I remember the 5 families of patients, 3 of them were tenants outside Luoyang, and 2 were long-term workers in the east of the city. They were not wealthy, Zhenggu said. Several of their children live in tent. They fell ill one after another in the past month, all of them were due to lack of diet, weak body and cold symptoms caused by wind, because they sought medical treatment more often and had a large population, so I remembered it. Zhenggu spoke in great detail, even more detailed than what was recorded in the dossier. At least Master Yu and Master Xia didn't know that he even treated their children. Zhenggu continued, it's about mid-November. The elderly in their family may have contracted the cold because of the cold weather, weak body and sick people at home. I showed them that they can be pricked with needles. Only the Mu family and the Huang family took the medicine because they were sick and they didn't want to get the needle. Zhenggu said this with some regrets and said, I always prescribed 3 medicines, 1 a day. When I prescribed the medicine, I went out to other counties. When I came back, they came to see the doctor again, but the condition did not improve. But it became more serious. I felt their pulse and felt that the cold symptoms were even worse. At that time, I suspected that their home environment was not good, so they could not keep warm, or other reasons, which made the disease aggravated, and I gave them 3 medicines were prescribed. Zhenggu paused when he said this, and his voice became low, but they haven't used up the medicine, and they all came to the door 2 days later, saying that the old man in the family was too sick to get out of bed, and begged me to take a look. I just went. When they got there, their family was indeed poor, but the old man's bedding was barely warm enough to keep warm. Taking medicine would not make it worse than this. When I checked their pulse, it didn't look like they had taken the right medicine, but they still took it. It looks like cold medicine, so I have to check the dregs and the medicine they caught. Zhenggu paused for a while before saying, Nepeta in the medicine has been replaced with mint, and Poria has been replaced with kudzu. Master Yu asked if he didn't understand, and asked Zhou Man directly across from him, is it serious? Zhou Man nodded and said, Nepeta dispels the exterior and dispels wind, while mint evacuates wind and heat and clears the head. It is a pungent and cool thing. She said, Nepeta, mint, and Sustem are all similar in appearance. If he replaces it with Sustem, that's all. If he replaces it with mint, the medicinal properties are just opposite. I've never heard of peppermint for colds, but... Zhou Man frowned slightly. Although the scents of Nepeta and mint are both fragrant, there is a difference in the fragrance. They cover up the taste of mint. Otherwise, how could the drug boy who took the medicine couldn't see it? Zhenggu nodded, they have smoked it with sulfur, and the taste is much lighter. If you don't smell it carefully, the taste is similar to that of Nepeta. As for Poria and Pueraria, it's more like that. The guys in the drugstore who deal with the medicinal materials all the year round, sometimes they will be fooled. If someone with conscientiousness made them look a little more like them, it would be even harder to tell them apart. Master Yu asked, then what? Zhenggu took a deep breath and said, 5 patients, 3 survived after I changed the dressings and added acupuncture and moxibustion, and the other 2, they were so ill that the medicine stone was ineffective. He said, I knew there was a problem with the pharmacy, so I went back to check and found fake medicines. I checked it. If it was really my mistake, it must be the batch of medicinal materials that came in on October 15th. Why not the batch on the 3rd day of November? Isn't the latest batch of medicinal materials on the 3rd day of November? Because that batch of medicinal materials was basically used in other counties, I checked and there was no problem with that batch of medicinal materials. There are not many people who go to other counties with Zhenggu. Usually, he is both a doctor and a drug boy who prescribes medicines. After passing through the medicinal materials in his hands, he is sure that there will be no fakes. But this batch in the medical department. Because there are not only 2 doctors in the medical office, there are also pharmacists, and there are 5 apprentices who help with medicine, so he is basically not used for prescribing medicine. What did you find out? Zhenggu said with a serious face, Xiaoguan can be sure that I will never mistake Jingji and Poria, so I didn't buy these fake medicines, but someone must have brought them in and replaced them. The amount of counterfeit medicines we found was not very large. It was sealed in the pharmacy at that time. The fake Nepeta was only 15 jins and 6 taels, and the fake Poria was only 28 jins and 9 taels. Could it be that your pharmacy made the mistake of picking up the medicine, mistakenly taking mint as Nepeta, mistakenly taking Pueraria as Poria? See you tomorrow. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 2816. No, this time, not only Zhenggu, but Zhou Man, Imperial Dr. Lu, and Imperial Dr. Xiaotan also denied it in unison. They raised their eyes to look at each other, and fell silent again, letting Zhenggu speak. Zhenggu couldn't help laughing, and said, "No, they have a special medicine cabinet, and the medicine boy picks the medicine according to the medicine cabinet. If the mint is not in the Jingji cabinet, the medicine boy will not catch it." Incorrect. And what if the person who put the nepeta in the medicine cabinet was wrong? Either unintentionally or intentionally. Zhenggu heard the words and fell silent. So is this fake medicine from outside, or is it originally from the medical department, but was misplaced? Even Zhou Man couldn't help sitting up straight. If the thing is not from outside, Zhenggu's crime of dereliction of duty is even more inexcusable. Even if it is from outside, he is also accused of improper supervision. Master Yu said, "Check the account. This project is a big one. The medicines in the medical office must be replenished before they are used up. To find out whether it is from outside or from inside, at least the investigation must start in January this year. In order to prevent people from hiding medicinal materials under the guise of prescriptions, they had to find out every prescription, which was a huge amount of work." Zhou Man immediately got up and looked out at the sun. "It seems that it's getting late, I have to go back and see Prince Gong." 4 adults. Everyone really couldn't let Zhou Man follow her to check the accounts, they could only watch her leave. Zhenggu got up and said, "Master, I will see you off." Master Yu raised his eyebrows and stood up. "Master Zhou, the lower official will send you one as well." Zhou Mandu did not refuse. This is a small yard, not far from the corner gate. It takes a few dozen steps to reach it. Zhou Man pushed the door open and stood outside the threshold looking at the things placed against the wall. Zhenggu sent a lot of people things. "Zhou Mandao, you are guilty now, even if you did not buy the fake medicine intentionally or unintentionally, but after all the medicine was placed in the medical office and passed from the medical office to the patient's hands, then you are responsible. You write a seal, the guilt letter is posted, let someone take it back." In front of Master Yu, Zhou Man did not speak very politely, and said to Zhenggu, "After this incident, the local medical office will check the pharmacy every 10 days, and you must not be slack, and you should take it as a warning." Zhenggu's eyes were red, and he bowed in response. Zhou Man stretched out his hand and patted his shoulder and said, "Anyone who is not a sage can be blameless. You are at fault in this matter, but the bigger fault is those who have malicious intentions. You should take it as a warning, but you can't make it your inner demon." She said with a serious face, "It's not worth it for these people. Even if you want to avenge your 2 patients, you have to find out these evil spirits behind you." Zhenggu's face became firmer, and he bowed to answer, "Yes." Zhou Man nodded, turned around and said, "I'm leaving, you are injured. Although it's winter now, you must pay attention to the wound and don't let it worsen." She glanced at the clothes on his body and said, "Stay in bed more, don't go out unless you can." Only then did Zhou Man look at Master Yu and smiled, "I also ask Master Yu to find out the truth as soon as possible. If there is any use for me, just speak up. I should stay in Luozhu until Prince Gong's condition improves. When will King Gong's illness get better, isn't it her decision?" Master Yu responded with a smile. Zhou Man got on the carriage of the palace and left. Zhenggu watched her go out of the alley before retracting his gaze. Master Yu stood a step behind him, smiled slightly. "Master Xiao Zheng has a good master." Zhenggu nodded and said, "Yes." Master Yu glanced at the thing in the corner and turned back. Zhenggu followed behind, hesitating for a moment, but couldn't help but say, "Master Yu, can the 2 doctors and the family members of our 4 families be released?" Seeing Master Yu frowning, he quickly said, "Just like me in the backyard of this hospital." He said, "Actually, the victim is me, and the ancient medicine has disappeared. Even if the 2 doctors are involved, it is enough to detain them, but the family is not involved, let alone there is no evidence yet." After thinking about it, Master Yu also felt that the magistrate Luo acted too aggressively, arresting all the family members of the 4 families at once, which was a waste of prison resources. Do you think you don't need money to be in prison? Their Dali temple spends a lot of money in prison every year, so he nodded and said, I'll go and bring people up in the afternoon. It just so happened that he was going to try the family members of the first instance pharmacopoeia and the two doctors. Manbao returned to Prince Gong's mansion, and when he was passing through the lobby, he met Prince Gong, who was doing nothing. He was sitting on a chair with a soft pillow behind it. It was very comfortable to lean on, but his stomach was a little big, so he couldn't see it. His own legs, but this did not prevent him from making a mockery of Zhou Man. Yo, the imperial doctor who treated the solitary king is back. Manbao paused, and walked towards him as soon as his feet turned. Prince Gong was actually a little bit afraid, and then he remembered something, and straightened his back to look at her. Manbao stood in front of him, raised his hand and bowed, Your Highness, I went to the vegetable market today. King Gong, what did she do in the vegetable market? I have already asked, there are still quite a lot of chickens in Luoyang, and I have decided that in the next month or even longer, you can only eat chicken breast. King Gong thought of the venison, beef, and mutton delivered to his house every winter. Especially the mutton and venison, it is really delicious. King Gong glared at Zhou Man. Man Bayadao, I have already written down the plan, and I have added and screened it again. I will be able to formulate it this afternoon. Your Highness, we will see you in the evening. Tonight's dinner is your last meal, you can indulge a little bit. Children, but don't overindulge, otherwise you will eat badly in your stomach, and you may need to pay attention to your diet from this evening. After saying that, Zhou Man bowed to Prince Gong's anger and turned to leave. Manbao went back to the study to write the plan. Since she worked so hard, after dinner in the evening, King Gong's family saw Zhou Man's carefully designed plan. King Gong has 3 pieces of paper, and the little prince is also 3 pieces of paper, which is especially fair. Xiao Shizi, who uses the words in daily life, basically knows him, so it is not difficult for him to read. Zhou Man writes in vernacular again, and he eats breakfast. 2 fist-sized steamed buns, and a pot of green vegetables simmered in boiling water. The little prince couldn't help but whisper, there are no green vegetables in winter. Already, Manbao looked at him and smiled. Through the efforts of the princess, the Tang family in Luoyang is willing to send a basket of vegetables to the palace every day, about 10 kilograms, regardless of others, only you and His Royal Highness Prince Gong, that's definitely enough. The little prince opened his mouth. He looked down at his schedule again, and found that he ate a lot, and he had a lot of meat. He could eat 6 meals a day. He was very skeptical, can this really help you lose weight? Are you sure you're not gaining weight? Manbao smiled slightly, the little prince is willing to cooperate. King Gong, who had already suffered once, glanced at his son sympathetically and felt that he was too naive. But after looking at his plan, he didn't have time to sympathize with his son. This is the second time for him, isn't it more pitiful? See you at 4 p.m. Farmer's Blessed Girl. Author, Yu Zhu. Chapter 2817. There are quite a lot of things listed on the plan, but when he really eats it, Xiao Shizi understands why his father hates this plan so much. Because the food is not tasty at all, the best thing to eat is the rice and steamed buns, which are a little sweet. The dishes for people who lose weight are light things that require less oil and less salt. If King Gong is so fat, he naturally likes things with heavy flavors. The little prince eats with his father, and the taste is naturally not too light. So after 2 days, the little prince couldn't take it anymore. He wiped his tears in front of Zhou Man. Master Zhou, is the palace out of salt? The little prince is only 7 years old. Although he is chubby, he can still be called cute when he is fat. He is not as obese as King Gong, so Zhou Man's attitude towards him is much better. She said, the important thing is to be like this, you need a light diet, and salt is the most important thing to control. Seeing his tearful eyes, Man Bao also felt a little sympathetic and said, "Otherwise, I'll give you an extra piece of meat for dinner tonight." Xiao Shizi immediately shook his head, "I don't want to eat more meat, can I eat an extra bowl of rice?" Lord Zhou's meat is all boiled in clear water with a little salt added. It's not delicious at all, and it's not as good as white rice and steamed buns. Man Bao thought for a while and said, "Half a bowl." The little prince let out a sigh of relief and turned around happily. At dinner, Prince Gong was unhappy. Why can he add half a bowl of rice, but this prince can't? Zhou Man, who was supervising the side, said without raising his head, "The little prince is still growing his body and intelligence, although I think the rice and noodles I gave him are enough, but if he still wants to eat it, maybe it is because he needs extra intelligence to grow, so it can be appropriately increased." After that, she lifted her eyelids and glanced at Prince Gong, and said, "But your highness doesn't need it. At this age, it is impossible to grow taller, and it is unlikely that he will grow intelligence. He may just want to eat if he wants to eat." King Gong. Princess Gong bowed her head and held back her laughter before raising her head to give her son a chopstick dish. "Hurry up, you have been doing a lot of homework recently. After you finish eating, go for a walk, and when you come back, you have to do some exercise." The little prince lowered his head, ate his share, and went for a walk obediently. King Gong is too fat. Unlike the little prince who can practice martial arts in the indoor martial arts field, he has another way of exercising. He can sit and lie down to exercise, but the force is not small. The father and son snacks and fruits also stopped. Although Zhou Man still gave them the fruits, the amount was reduced a lot. That's fine. What made them sad was that there was not a single snack. In less than 3 days, the mouths of Prince Gong and the little prince faded out, and sometimes they couldn't walk when they saw the food of the servants. I always feel that what the next person eats tastes better than them. But the results are also gratifying. Although it was only 3 days, when the weight was weighed, King Gong lost 3 catties, almost 1 catty a day. The little prince was a little slower, but he also lost a pound in 3 days, and Zhou Man was very satisfied with this. Prince Gong was too tired to think about it. Because the little prince still had to go to school, Zhou Man set him a short exercise time, 2/4 of an hour in the morning, 2/4 of an hour at noon, and 2/4 of an hour in the evening. It was a combination of work and rest. And Prince Kung was eating, resting, exercising, resting, eating, and exercising almost all day. When he returned to the room, his mind could not move. He asked Princess Gong, "Have you not begged Zhou Man yet?" Princess Gong shook her head, "I heard that the angels from the capital are still investigating. Lord Zhou has only gone out once in 2 days. Didn't you see it too? It's almost New Year's Eve, can you why find out?" "I can't find out and ask this king, idiot. He just wanted to make Zhou Man turn his eyes away, life is too sad now." Princess Gong covered her lips and smiled, and said, "I asked Lord Zhou, and she said that she has already given the discount to His Majesty and the Empress, and she will wait until His Majesty's body recovers before leaving. She is expected to stay until the first month of next year. If the time is not good, Your Majesty may announce that you will go to Beijing to continue." King Gong. He didn't want to go to the capital. Don't look at him being tossed by Zhou Man here, but this is his palace after all. Although Princess Gong also takes care of him, he can still eat a little if he is careful. But going to Beijing is different. At that time, the Queen Mother will definitely send Aunt Chang to stare at him. At that time, he really won't be able to eat a single bit. King Gong asked, "How many pounds do I weigh that she thinks is healthy?" "At least 160 pounds. King Gong got up and left, "Then she will stay in Luozhu for the rest of her life. This king will go to sleep in the study tonight." He didn't want to see the people who persecuted him these days. Seeing him leave, Princess Gong shook her head helplessly. Prince Gong sat in his study and pondered, but he didn't want to lose weight, but about the fake medicine case. He had the long history of the palace called and asked, when will the fake medicine be sent to Luozhu? From the medical office. Chang Shi said, we speculate that it was around October. At that time, Zhengku happened to have a batch of medicinal materials. As far as we know, the batch of medicinal materials Zhengku in November was sent to other counties for disaster relief. King Gong snorted coldly, no wonder, he made a move and couldn't take it back, so he could only make a mistake. At that time, the father and emperor had not returned to the court, and those idiots in the court who had intercepted medicinal herbs and food were still alive and well. Chang Shi frowned and said, my lord, we should write to impeach Luozhu in this matter. You are a vassal king, and even if you don't have the right to manage the locality, you still have the responsibility to police the local officials. King Gong said, isn't the angel right here, why do you want to be far away? Chang Shi asked bluntly, when will the Lord tell the angel about this? He paused and then added, tell Master Yu and Master Xia. Zhou Man is also an angel, but she doesn't care about it, it's useless to tell her. King Gong said perfunctorily, wait a minute, maybe we don't need to tell us, they will find out by themselves. Chang Shi was not happy. The long history of Prince Gong's mansion was carefully selected by the emperor, but it was decided by the empress's suggestion, so the selected long history was a little righteous. He still tends to ask for the people's orders, and is not used to this kind of behavior. After King Gong learned about the situation, he coaxed Chang Shi away, and then he called his confidant to ask, have you found it out? Where did the prescription medicine from the Luozhu medical office go? I found that he is almost an ice sculpture. He should not be found under a snowdrift outside the city until the snow melts. Upon hearing this, Prince Gong frowned, who killed it? Forget it, whoever killed it, dig it out, and then lead people to find out. Zhou Man is too busy, let him have something to do, Yu Huai and the others are too slow. He wanted to rest for 2 days, but he was too tired. Originally, I wanted to wait for Zhou Man to open his mouth before letting Princess Gong give him love, but... See you at 7 p.m.